We are back on the Falcons Audible. It is game week. By the way, it is presented by AT&T. It's game week, everybody.
Thank you.
Game week. Week one of the National Football League season is finally upon us. I told you last week that we're going to be back this week, and we're actually talking about some games that matter, some regular season games, the ones that actually show up in the win-loss column when you pull them up on your app, whichever one you use. And I think everybody out there that does the fantasy stuff, they know what it is, right? Everybody's been really busy when it comes to the NFL over the last week or so. I'm Rack. This is Arch. This is Shock, as always. We are here to talk Atlanta Falcons. We're here to talk week one, okay? All right, fellas, before we get into actual action on the field, I think it's pretty cool to note that the Atlanta Falcons named their captains for the 2024 season.
Yeah, I was pretty hyped to get that call that I was a captain this week. So.
DJ, that they didn't call you.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I got the note right here.
I was actually a little surprised that you got the call. No, you didn't get the call.
He didn't get the call. Now, he got the call to come here today, but he didn't get the call for the captain. The four captains for the season.
You are captain.
You could be the captain of the Falcons Audible, DJ. I will elect you that, and I'm sure Arch won't argue with it.
No.
The captains for this year will be our incoming starting quarterback, Kirk Cousins, our offensive tackle, Jake Matthews, our defensive tackle, Grady, Jarrett, who is back on the field this season, and, of course, Jesse Bates, our star safety from a year ago. Kirk Cousins, 13th season. Jake Matthews, 11th season. Grady Jarrett, of course, 10th season. And Jesse Bates, 7th season. DJ, I'm going to start with you. I don't think this is one of those deals where it's like any surprises or anything, but when you saw the four names listed as captains, your first thought was what?
I thought about exactly what you said. How many years have all these guys been in the National Football League and went through it and said, wow, every guy going into whatever year you just mentioned, 41 years worth of NFL experience as your captains of your team. And for me, that speaks volumes. It tells you that, for one, these guys have been able to sustain for a length of a time, and then to do it at the level they're playing at. You're talking about 13 years, 10 years, 11 years, and you're still playing at a high level that your team feels like you should represent us. And then I started thinking about, obviously, what a captain is all about. And you think about the way they handle themselves in every aspect of this organization and the way they go about their business. And we know all the things that Grady's done in the community. We know about what Kirk's done in this league. Just the way they handle themselves in the media, what they handle themselves in classrooms, the meetings, in the community. And then you accomplish that with what this organization is about. I don't think you could have four better guys to represent university and put that C on their chest when they walk out game one. So all those guys are deserving. All those guys have proved it on the field. But I think most importantly, they've proved it off the field of the things they do and who they are. And they absolutely will always represent the team to the best of their abilities. And it wasn't a surprise. When I saw them, I was like, that makes sense. All those guys are absolutely guys you want to wear that seat.
You know what's interesting here, fellas, is that Jesse Bates and everything that he has accomplished in his career came over as one of the prize free agents in free agency period last year, is the youngest and least experienced captain of this group, right? Like, when is Jesse Bates going to walk around and saying, like, I still got to earn my stripes in this group, right? I mean, but pretty impressive group, right, Arch?
Yeah, there's no question about it, and Shock said it perfectly. These guys represent everything you want on and off the field. The thing that kind of dawned on me a little bit with them is there's not a lot of rah-rah in these four guys either. When you start, Jesse, not hardly any. Jake Matthews, certainly not a little. No, we're not in the room, so certainly he's in the room and he's motivating or sitting on the sideline and talking to guys and things like that, but not beating their chest and all that kind of stuff. Grady's a little bit more demonstrative than he was earlier in his career. And certainly Kirk Cousins, when you're the quarterback, there's going to be a lot more dialogue you're going to have with your teammates and all that kind of stuff. But respect came to mind for me. When you have choose guys like this, there's a tremendous amount of respect from what Shock was talking about. Their on the field work ethic. Their off-the-field work ethic doesn't change. They're the same dudes, and I think that's key as a captain. You got to be the same dude all the time. You can't be different guys and stuff like that. You got to be a rock that guys can go lean on, and that's what these guys are.
You know, and I think for folks that don't know a ton about it, like, they might ask, okay, well, what does a Falcon do? What does a captain do in the National Football League? And to your guys' point, I think it's a little different across the league. But I also think it's not necessarily like well, it's got to be one of these four. When things aren't going well, they have to step up and they pump up the team. It's like, yeah, maybe, but maybe not. But it's more or less like this is an honor that has been earned throughout what they've done throughout their career. And I'm sure it has something to do with how they've approached this season and how they've taken a leadership role. But a lot of times, like wearing that C on the chest is just like that guy right there embodies everything what it means to be a prototypical National Football League player and a guy that's a leader, right? You don't necessarily have to look at him and say, oh, he's got to be the one that's screaming. He's got to be. No, not necessarily. But he's the guy that probably leads by example. Yeah. He gets things done on the field. He gets other people lined up where they're supposed to be because he knows where everybody is on the field. Like all these little things just kind of end up adding up to making a captain. And yes, these guys are very accomplished. That's the reason why they've been given this honor. We talked about Grady Jarrett, by the way. If you haven't seen it, make sure you pull up the Grady Jarrett story, year 10 on the Atlanta Falcons YouTube channel. Awesome production, and it just really kind of peels back the onion a little bit, if you will, on Grady Jarrett, everything that makes him tick. Make sure you go and watch that a little bit.
Real quickly on that, we got to talk about that for a second. And an unbelievable job. Rax, correct, in the group that put that together. That's not just one person. There's a number of people that are involved in this, editing all the video and putting all the sound to it. Incredible effort by everybody here with the Atlanta Falcons. It's connected to that department. Just an amazing job. I watched that. I came away thinking I'm not doing enough.
You feeling inadequate?
Did you feel? I don't know. Did you guys watch that and you think, wow, Grady does that, Annie does that, Annie's doing that, and I'm going,
what am I doing?
Well, yeah, I did. I felt like, damn, I'm not doing enough.
Slouch right now.
I was just so impressed with how they captured him as a young player and then the growth of him as a man and all the kind of things that he's become, a father and all that kind of stuff. And then really, as you mentioned, really kind of the heartbeat of this football team and the way you're supposed to go about business and all that kind of stuff. Really cool. So check it out. It's a really good deal.
Awesome deal with Grady Jarrett. And just Arch, sometimes you just can't be Grady Jarrett, okay? Just as much as we try, Shock, we just can't be Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, can't do it.
Well, when we face off against the Steelers this weekend, there's going to be a lot of former Falcons. Well, Grady Jarrett is not a former Falcon. He is just a Falcon.
Yes, sir.
But there's going to be a lot of familiar faces when Atlanta squares off against the Steelers. I'm not sure if you guys checked it out, but I looked at the depth chart and I was like, oh, I remember that name, and that name, and that name, and that name, and that name. I think most of you know Arthur Smith now, the offensive coordinator with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but also some names that come to mind: Cordero Patterson, Scotty Miller, Michael Pruitt, DeMonte Casey on the defensive side. I think there's a couple other names as well. It's going to be somewhat of a homecoming, Arch, next week for some of these guys on this team that have played against these or played with these guys.
Yeah, and you wonder what motivation there is for those guys. Okay, they're no longer part of this team. For some reason, they're not here anymore, whether you're a coach or a player. So what kind of angst does that kind of stir up? What kind of motivation does that stir up? You're motivated anyway. You only get 17 opportunities to go play, so you want to lay it out on the line each time you get a chance. But there is a little bit extra when it's your former team or something like that. So you wonder how much extra will be in it for some of the players. Now, certainly Arthur Smith, former head coach here, he's going to be trying to coach his rear end off, try to get them in the best position they can be to offensively. So as far as him getting caught up in the emotional part of it, I think that would be post if things worked out for him. But I think that he's got to be careful about making sure he dials in and is just, hey, this is just another faceless opponent and go to work. So, but you wonder, where the emotions are there with some of the players.
I think, like you mentioned, initially there will be a little bit. Obviously, you walk back in the building, you know what it feels like. You go out there, we see him pregame, and you see guys, chatting it up, talking to everybody, and you want it. And to be honest, to keep it real, you play against your former team or former teammates, you want to get the best of them because it gives you really good bragging rights for sure. And it's something that you feel like, okay, here's my chance to show why maybe I still should be there or why I should be on that team or whatever it may be. But I think what Arj mentioned was spot on. Once the game gets going, I think you have to forget about that because if you're so concerned about this particular player or beating this particular team, it takes away from the focus of what you have to actually do. And for a guy like Arthur Smith, it's calling the game. It's, finding the right matchups. It's not concerning yourself with what they have going on over there or who is over there and why I'm not there, because that takes away from your individual focus of being better. And I'll take it back to this. I think everybody has played against somebody that they know or was on their team. Just think about, okay, you get into the National Football League and you go play the freaking Bears and there's your teammate from college. You think about it, yeah, you want to beat them, but at the end of the day, you still have your job to do, because if not, guess what? You're going to get called out by your old friend for getting burnt or whatever it was because you're so worried about this guy. So I think, there's absolutely a little angst when you walk into that ball game. You don't want to be the one that gets beat. You don't want to be the one that, gives up something in that ball game. But you do want to put your best foot forward, I think, always. And once the game kicks off, it's time to go play ball.
Okay, so here becomes part of the equation as we start looking at this game is that piece of it. So you've talked about 2 or 3 players, whether it's Scotty Miller lined up in the slot and all of a sudden D. Alford rocks down on him. He went against D. Alford all of last year in training camp and in practice, and he knows D. Alford, and does he know some of the idiosyncrasies that D has, some of his weaknesses? Arthur Smith trying to do something against his defense. Is there a guy that he can attack? Is there a guy that he saw during the year that had struggled with certain type of techniques and things like that, whether it's getting George Pickens isolated on somebody or something of that nature? That part will play out now. That's real. As far as the emotion stuff, Shock's right, that stuff will dissipate and go away maybe as they get off the bus and walk in the building. But then the real strategy part of it now, where I know what that guy's weaknesses are, I know what his strengths are, some of those kind of things may play out in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you could sit there and say, well, the Steelers are going to have an advantage because Arthur Smith's calling plays and he knows what all the defense, what their, like you said, maybe their weaknesses are or what their tendencies are. But you could easily just flip it around the other way.
For sure.
And you could say Jesse Bates sits back there and he's watched every play that Arthur Smith tried to throw at him in training camp a year ago and during the season when they would go good on good. And he's going to say, you know what, 3rd and 7, I got a pretty good idea what he's going to try to dial up here because he's got a sense in how he tries to attack. So, yes.
Well, and the other piece of that, real quickly, Rack, the other piece of that is he has no idea what Jimmy Lake's going to throw at him.
Right.
Okay, so there's an adjustment there. Yeah, I know some of the players, but I don't remember him lining up right there like that. And why are those 3 guys lined up outside the tight end? So he doesn't know that, and that's the piece that he's going to have to be adjusted to in the first quarter.
I knew what Ryan Nielsen was doing to me last year, but this guy, I don't really have a book on him yet.
Right.
And don't know what he's going to throw at me in the National Football League, at least with these type of players. So we kind of got into a little bit of the players. And, Arch, I'm going to come straight back to you because, Arch, when we get into game week, Arch brings his chart. He brings his board here because he in game mode, okay? And so basically he's got all of the Falcons that are going to be –
Don't throw away my secrets.
Don't give all the secrets, huh?
Like I'm in the game plan.
Right. So he's got Falcons depth chart against the Steelers offense versus D and flip it over.
That's why they call it a flip card, right?
And so I'm going to give you first crack to let our viewers and listeners know, who are the 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers? What are Atlanta facing this weekend?
Well, this is a team that kind of the bread is buttered on the defensive side of the football. They struggled offensively last year, hence there's a new offensive coordinator. Yep. There's 2 new quarterbacks. Yep. There's some new players on their team. They've drafted a couple offensive linemen. But when you look at them defensively, when you got Alex Highsmith coming off of one side and T.J. Watt coming off the other, you love the way that looks. Oh, by the way, Cam Hayward's inside and has 88 or 89 career sacks. Just got paid, by the way, by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their front 7 is formidable. Minkah Fitzpatrick in the back end has 19 career interceptions. This is a team that was plus 11 in the giveaway takeaway, which was 3rd best in the National Football League last year. So they're used to taking the ball away and creating opportunities for their offense. Now, they did that last year. They were very good in the red zone defensively. It was more of a bend, don't break group last year. I'm sure they would like to get back to maybe suffocating people a little more like they've done in the past. Yep. So people moved the ball, but when you got to the red zone, teams were converting touchdowns at about 45% once they got in the red zone, which is near the top of the National Football League. I think they gave up 19 points a game defensively. Now, unfortunately for them, their offense was only averaging 17 points a game. So it wasn't equating to any wins. Now, this team went 10-7 with an offense that averaged 17.9 points per game.
Yeah.
That'll tell you that the defensive side of the ball is pretty salty.
Legit.
And that's who they've been for a long time. The Blitzburg days, Dick LeBeau, all those. Now it's a different group now that's there, but they still play the same pride that Pittsburgh's supposed to bring to the table.
Shock, this is a team that is, like Arch said, has basically been known for suffocating defense, and they like old school run the ball. And then, obviously when Roethlisberger was there, he had the ability to air it out, and that's obviously the reason why they were in the postseason every year, going to Super Bowls. But the quarterback position isn't very good. They obviously upgraded that, or at least they think. That's to be determined, right? But I think I want to go back to the defensive side of the ball because Arch laid out some of the names, and you talked about Highsmith and Watt. TJ Watt has become one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League. Yeah. I went and looked at it. Like, he's led the league in 3 of the last 4 years. Led the National Football League. Yeah. He had 19 last year. Yeah. A couple of years before, they had 22 and a half career sacks. So I'm going to ask you, as the quarterback, and you got that guy coming off the edge, what kind of game plan do you want to see to slow down TJ Watt?
Well, I think it's for one, when you come into any ball game, you have a guy like that who can be an absolute wrecker. You got to account for him on every play. You got to make sure you know where this guy's lined up and what you have going against it. And obviously, when you're trying to throw the football down the field, that's when it really comes into play, because that's when you have more time to hold on to the football. If I'm the Atlanta Falcons, I'm finding ways that the ball's coming out quicker. I'm finding ways where I'm changing the snap count. I'm doing things. I'm bringing guys down in motion, chipping him. I'm putting things around him that makes him feel a little bit like, okay, I got to make sure I know what's going on around me. But also, I have to be able to run the football. Because you run the football, that slows down a pass rush, knowing that I have to go and got to retrace my steps to come back, and then now I can't get off the ball too far because then here comes a trap coming up underneath me and I'm way upfield and I can't make that play. So I think it starts with being able to run the football, because if you're able to do that, and then here comes quick game, then here comes play action off of it, because now you got him thinking about, okay, what's coming next. So I think you have to vary the way you go about calling this ball game because of a guy like that. So you can't go in thinking, oh, yeah, he's a good player, we're going to block him up. You have to account for him. You can't have the ego of, yeah, I got a really good tackle out here who can hold his own. Give that guy some help, because as you just mentioned, this is a guy that can wreak havoc and has done it over the last 3-4 years in the National Football League at a high clip. So you don't want him to start the year that way. I remember last year when we were talking about playing Carolina first, and Brian Burns was, one of those guys, and we saw him get 2-3 sacks in the first couple of series, and you're like, okay, why do you account for this guy? And you think, oh, he's coming off, been out of training camp, whatever it is. I think you have to find ways offensively to slow him down with how you call the game. So I think it starts with the run game. It starts with, being able to run the rock and taking him out of it from a standpoint of just being able to rear his ears back and come out to get you. Now, it's going to be times where it's going to be 3rd and long, where it's going to be obvious throwing situations, and you have to count for that. But I think one thing that we know that Kirk does really well is he's not going to hold on to the rock. He's not going to sit back there and pat it 3-4 times, hitch 3-4 times, and take a sack, or he's going to find a way to throw this football away. So I think we have that as an advantage. But also, I think Zach Robinson's going to do a good job of finding ways so that he does not have a big part of it in TJ Watt.
It's interesting, too, Shock. All that's really good, especially from a quarterback perspective. Kirk's obviously extremely cerebral when it comes to this kind of stuff, but his idea – and I love the mix-up of quick game and screen game and running the football. And not just running the football, but running the football at a pass rusher.
Right.
Try to reduce them physically in the game. Now, let's not forget, the dude on the other side is a pretty good player. Yes. Alex Highsmith, he had 12 and a half sacks in 22 when T.J. Watt was banged up. Watt played, 10 or 12 games in 22, and his sack numbers came down. That was the one year he didn't lead the league in sacks. Well, Alex Highsmith had 12 and a half on the other side. So they've got two formidable guys. But the one thing that comes to mind for me for Kirk is, as much as you want to take your shots, and I think this is where he's a tremendous upgrade from what we've had at quarterback over the last couple of seasons, is his understanding of down and distance and making sure that he stays in good spots.
Good call.
Because if I get locked in 2nd and long and 3rd and long situations against this group, that's not good.
Correct.
And I can't – chip releasing and all that kind of stuff's fine on 1st and 2nd down, but when I get into 3rd down – I'm going to spread out and I'm going to attack the secondary with as many guys as I can. If I'm chip releasing then I'm really muddying the water on what my look is so I can get the ball out to extend the drives and get first downs. So if I can stay in down and distance situations that are good, then I don't have to worry about that as much because the ball's going to come out on time, right, Shaq?
Yeah, and the last thing to that point is we talk so much about how we have linebackers that are athletic that can rush the passer like a Caden Ellis. They got a guy, Patrick Queen, coming over from Baltimore. Similar statue, very athletic, will rush the passer as well, is a tackling machine as well. Have to account for him as well in his defense because he's one of those guys that can be a game wrecker as well if you give him a chance.
Yeah, personnel is not lacking with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like they got a really talented team, and here's the other thing that we know is that they're going to travel well. Yeah. Pittsburgh always travels well. It's going to be loud at times when Atlanta is on offense, and that's just how it is. That's just the nature of the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers travel, and we all know that, guys. We've been in whether it was the Georgia Dome or we didn't play Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but like we know we've played them before, and they travel extremely well. Let's flip it around. Let's talk about their offense against our defense because I don't want to make this all about the Atlanta Falcons offense. Yes, they're going to have 2 new quarterbacks. Russell Wilson's going to start. They also have Justin Fields as well. You mentioned George Pickens. You got a little bit of background with you. And by the way, I made a comment about you. You made this comment earlier about going up against your former teammates. Okay, not everybody goes and puts 10 guys in the NFL from their college every year. DJ, like. True. Iowa State and Minnesota might get 2 or 3 guys every year, okay? Right, and it might take like 7 years to play against one of your former teammates. It's not like every game you're going to play against 8 Georgia Bulldogs.
Come on, man. It's always – everybody's got players.
All right, so DJ –
but that is true. Good call
what are the challenges that this Falcons defense are going to see when Pittsburgh is on offense?
You know, I think the number one thing that comes to mind for me, even though he's not at the level that he was years ago, but his ability to create and make extra plays in Russell Wilson. And I think that's part of the game. That's going to be a big part of it is Russell, he's going to throw it around a little bit, but he also wants to improvise a little bit. He wants to get outside the pocket a little bit. He wants to, climb the pocket, get outside, and make that extra second or third play on the outside. And I think we have to do a very good job of, for one, what we say, plastering on the back end. Don't just because he's scrambling, you get off your receiver. I think that's a big part of the ballgame is him being able to be mobile and move and use his legs. And I think, obviously, we've known Arthur Smith's system and we know the type of quarterbacks he's had over the years where he wants guys to move. Ever since, Mariota and Dez and having guys that can, use the naked bootleg game and get on the outside to use the perimeter as another guy on the edge. I think that's part of the game as well as limiting Russell Wilson in those extra plays when he starts to get outside the pocket because that's when you think about, hey, it's 3rd and 7 and here you go. You get a good pass rush, you force him out, and then he gets outside the pocket. He either runs or he finds a guy and to keep the drive going. Those are the plays I think that you kind of think about in a ballgame like, okay, well, we should have got off the field there, but it leads to a field goal or it leads to extra points. Those are plays in the game that I'll be looking for that hopefully we can kind of withstand and not allow them to have 4, 5, 6 plays of that nature throughout a game.
I mean, got to be opportunistic on defense because the one thing that we know about Russ is there's not a throw that he doesn't think he can make. Right. And he's going to cut it loose. Like that's love him or hate him, that's one of the things he does. He's going to take the shot down the field, he's going to take the go route down the seam, he's going to take the skinny post, he's going to try to make the big play. But when he makes that throw and it's not necessarily online, you got to be there to make a play. But what else sticks out to you, Arch, from their offense that may present some issues?
Well, it's interesting too the conversation with Russell Wilson that he got benched at the end of the year in Denver for whatever money reason. I don't even know what it was, but the guy had 26 touchdowns and only 8 picks last year. Yeah. He was right around 3,000 yards passing with a couple of games left. So it wasn't like he was playing really badly. The year before he struggled, but under that regime. But with Sean Payton there, he played pretty good. So it's not like we got a guy that's coming in that's just damaged material that's taken over at quarterback. This guy's a legitimate Super Bowl winning quarterback. Probably should have 2 in his pocket had they been able to convert that throw on the goal line when he was in Seattle. So
ask Marshawn about that, right?
all that being said, obviously Arthur Smith wants to run the football. And Najee Harris, a big back, can run the ball. He and Jaylen Warren, who is kind of an unsung hero and kind of a gem that maybe only people are starting to find out about. Had 1 year at Oklahoma State, played his first couple of years at Utah State, and kind of burst on the scene last year when Najee Harris was down a little bit. Jaylen Warren was in the game. These 2 guys rushed for 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns combined a year ago. Mm-hmm. Jalen's a good receiver out of the backfield, as is Najee Harris. So look for that piece to still stay in the mix. Now, this offensive line is going to be interesting to see how they figure this out. Zach Frazier was a second-round draft pick out of West Virginia, two-time All-American. He's a good player. He's a rookie center. Okay, it looks like Seumalo, their left tackle, left guard, is going to be out of the game. He has a pec injury, and so they're going to start potentially Spencer Anderson, who has limited number of snaps in the National Football League, played all across the offensive line at Maryland, did not play left guard. That's where it looks like he's going to play. Now, he's filled in at left guard during training camp, so he's gotten some reps, but that's not necessarily, he's the background for him, right? Then you've got youngsters like Fontu, the kid from Washington. He's been banged up. He's had a knee. They don't know if he's going to start. They don't know if they want to start two rookies on the offensive line. So there's a lot of flux going on with Pittsburgh's offensive line. Why I'm saying that, to me, it's early blood in the water. If I'm defensively, I'm going to try to attack that. I'm going to try to say, okay, hey, we're going to overwhelm you. Big crowd, everybody being loud. My guys, Judon's coming off the ball. Grady's coming off the ball. Let's go get them. Let's attack them, and let's overwhelm them. I sense that might be in the mix here. And don't let George Pickens make a big play.
Yeah, exactly, because he's got the ability to do that. He is a big-time playmaker, and he can make you pay if you let your guard down. Before we wrap up, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have you guys give me something that you are most interested in seeing this weekend. It could be a play, it could be a player, it could be a matchup. But, DJ, here's the rule. Okay, you got to stick to my rules, both of you guys.
He's got rules this year.
10 words or less on what you're looking to see. 10 words or less. If you go past 10 words, you're going to get the
All right. I think I'm good.
That's
I got like
words.
9 words already. Let's go.
I'm good. I was asking a question. I'm all right.
You're out of words.
All right.
Okay, go.
Mine is, I want to see how a healthy Kyle Pitts is used in this offense.
Nice.
Okay.
So, that's a good one.
Okay,
it's good. We got it. Healthy Kyle Pitts in this offense. Arch.
Blocking the front seven of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Love it. Mine, defensive line of scrimmage.
Okay.
Matthew Judon.
Okay. I like it.
Okay, you got that. That worked. They got it. You got it.
Matthew Judon. 7.
Okay.
See?
Nice. That was very economic by you, by the way.
I think I had less words too, by the way.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. 1 p.m. this Sunday, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Pittsburgh Steelers will be in town.
Be there.
Will you be there? Because all three of us will be there in the house this weekend as the Atlanta Falcons kick off the 2024 NFL season. You know what we need to do? Start fast. Let's get on the board right away. Let's find a way to get some stops on defense, and let's come away with a victory and start this thing 1-0. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Rack. That's Arch. That's Shock. We'll be back next week to wrap everything up from week 1 of the NFL season. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Blow the roof open, baby. Woo!